Good morning, and thank you very much for joining us. I am Yori Folani. Okay, let's take a look at President Tinubu's presentation yesterday. Now the nation has a budget, and it's, 27.5 trillion naira. It's been submitted to the National Assembly. Of course, they're going to go into processes, but we'll talk about it. Now, just to sort of, first of all, let me introduce our guest, Senator Babajide Omoworare, former SSA to President Buhari on National Assembly matters. He joins us this morning. A fine morning to you, sir. Thank you for making it.
Good morning.
All right, then. So let's just look at this news package as a background, and then we'll come on and then we'll talk about it. Check this out.
Okay.
This is President Bola Tinubu's maiden budget presentation to the National Assembly. The President of the Senate, Godswill Akpabio, sets the ball rolling with his welcome remarks. He applauds the giant strides of Mr. President in the past months and promises a robust executive-legislature relationship without compromising the doctrine of separation of powers.
We will certainly conduct a very thorough and meticulous review of the estimates we are about to present to us. I would also like to express our gratitude to Mr. President for his tireless efforts in driving economic growth, promoting social welfare, and enhancing the security of our dear nation.
President Bola Tinubu took the legislators through government's projections in the coming year. Non-debt expenditure is 9.92 trillion naira, debt servicing at 8.25 trillion naira, capital expenditure of 8.7 trillion naira, and a revenue projection of 9.1 trillion naira.
Despite the global headwind, the Nigerian economy has proven resilient, maintaining moderate but positive growth over the past 12 months. Inflation has trended upward, yes, due to the weak global conditions. To contain these rising domestic prices, we will ensure effective coordination of physical and monetary policy measures.
For the Speaker, House of Representatives, due diligence is key as lawmakers review the fiscal document.
The budget laid before us today should not be seen as a mere financial document, but a reflection of our collective vision to address the most critical needs of our long-suffering citizens.
As Mr. President and his entourage take their leave, the two chambers announced their resolve to hit the ground running. They also agreed to sit on weekends in response to Mr. President's appeal.
In the days ahead, the National Assembly will definitely be very busy as both chambers play host to different ministries, departments and agencies of the government in a bid to see them defend their budget estimates. Expectations, as they have also assured Mr. President, is that they will meet up the timeline of January to December budget cycle once again. TVC News, Abuja.
Good morning, and thank you very much for joining us. I am Yori Folani. Okay, let's take a look at President Tinubu's presentation yesterday. Now the nation has a budget, and it's, 27.5 trillion naira. It's been submitted to the National Assembly. Of course, they're going to go into processes, but we'll talk about it. Now, just to sort of, first of all, let me introduce our guest, Senator Babajide Omoworare, former SSA to President Buhari on National Assembly matters. He joins us this morning. A fine morning to you, sir. Thank you for making it.
Good morning.
All right, then. So let's just look at this news package as a background, and then we'll come on and then we'll talk about it. Check this out.
Okay.
This is President Bola Tinubu's maiden budget presentation to the National Assembly. The President of the Senate, Godswill Akpabio, sets the ball rolling with his welcome remarks. He applauds the giant strides of Mr. President in the past months and promises a robust executive-legislature relationship without compromising the doctrine of separation of powers.
We will certainly conduct a very thorough and meticulous review of the estimates we are about to present to us. I would also like to express our gratitude to Mr. President for his tireless efforts in driving economic growth, promoting social and enhancing the security of our dear nation.
President Bola Tinubu took the legislators through government's projections in the coming year. Non-debt expenditure is 9.92 trillion naira, debt servicing at 8.25 trillion naira, capital expenditure of 8.7 trillion naira, and a revenue projection of 9.1 trillion naira.
Despite the global headwind, the Nigerian economy has proven resilient, maintaining moderate but positive growth over the past 12 months. Inflation has trended upward, yes, due to the weak global conditions. To contain these rising domestic prices, we will ensure effective coordination of physical and monetary policy measures.
For the Speaker, House of Representatives, due diligence is key as lawmakers review the fiscal document.
The budget laid before us today should not be seen as a mere financial document, but a reflection of our collective reason to address the most critical needs of our long-suffering citizens.
As Mr. President and his entourage take their leave, the two chambers announced their resolve to hit the ground running. They also agreed to sit on weekends in response to Mr. President's appeal.
In the days ahead, the National Assembly will definitely be very busy as both chambers play host to different ministries, departments and agencies of the government in a bid to see them defend their budget estimates. Expectations, as they have also assured Mr. President, is that they will meet up the timeline of January to December budget cycle once again. Joke Adisa, TVC News, Abuja.
Okay, then apologies for contents of that report where the sound was awful, but luckily you heard it live, and essentially Senator Omoworare, Senator Babajide Omoworare, is standing by. He's our guest this morning, former SSA to President Buhari on National Assembly matters. So, Senator, your general comments and on overview of it, 27.5 trillion budget.
Well, thank you for having me, and good morning to the viewers. My overview was that the president gave a very clear, unambiguous, very categorical, very lucid budget speech. And the budget speech, was so clear that you could discern and very well structured. The first thing he did was to thank the members and the senators and the honorable members of House of Representatives for their cooperation so far. And he now went on to, first of all, talk about removal of subsidy that has been done, and the fact that he's had to bring supplementary budgets with respect to infrastructure and with respect to security. He went on to provide what seemed like a problem statement, looking at the global economic meltdown, the strife, the war going on all over the world, and the post-COVID effect on the economy. From my perspective, situating the Nigerian economic position in the global perspective, that it's not something that is just unique to Nigeria, it's global. After doing that, he went on to review the 2023 budget, and he now stated in the 2024 budget what he proposed to do. He spoke about security, national security and defense. He spoke about human capital being the most vital factor when it comes to national development.
Do you think, sorry to interject, Senator, do you, I imagine those are very, very important, categories, security, job creation, and poverty reduction, or even eradication. Those three, security, job creation, and poverty eradication. Because would you like to talk about understanding why, indeed, those ones should be the top liners in the budget?
Well, sincerely, you cannot build a nation if you run a nation of poor people. It will not work. It has never worked anywhere in the world. What the budget seeks to do all over the world is to ensure that whilst most countries are capitalistic in nature, there is free enterprise, the state has a duty to, although it may be classified as part of Chapter 2 of the Constitution, fundamental, objective and directive state principles that are supposedly non-justiciable, but the state has an obligation to ensure that those who cannot lift their arms, the state assists them in lifting their arms. Any smart state, any smart government must ensure that if it's not going to be poverty eradication completely, it will be poverty reduction. It will provide for development of human capital, which is also, funny enough, that's what I think is a ace in Nigeria. That is what I think we have most, more than natural resources, human capital. And any smart government must develop human capital. So I think the government of Asiwaju Bola Tinubu is on point by picking that as a fundamental issue. He said it will be reviewed. A lot of things will be reviewed in that respect. A lot of things will be reviewed. Probably in the past, because there has to be transparency, there has to be accountability. We have to know the number of people that are actually within the bracket and how to reach the number of people within that bracket and extend the largesse that the government wants to give to them to enable them to find their footing. It's never what will be perpetual. It's not perpetual. It's not what, and nobody wants to be a poor person. But the government's responsibility includes ensuring that you find your feet and you are elevated above that poverty line. We have to reduce the poverty level in Nigeria, and I'm happy that that was one of the issues identified by the president amongst several other issues.
Okay. Did you notice the president said everything has been predicated on an oil price of 77.96, and he said a conservative estimate of 77.96 per barrel, dollars per barrel. But that is, he said it was conservative, but I think that is even slightly higher than what we have at the moment.
Well, the number one thing I have to first of all clarify is that budget itself is not actual. Budget is based on speculation, is based on calculated, speculative parameters.
Okay.
Which is why you always have MTEF. You know, the president thanked the members of the National Assembly for passing the MTEF on time, which is the medium-term expenditure framework and the fiscal strategy paper under the Fiscal Responsibility Act. That is always that is only what comes before the budget. It is the foundation upon which the budget is built. That is what the National Assembly must first of all approve. I think is Section 11 of the Fiscal Responsibility Act that says this. It's an all-encompassing act that talks about revenue, expenditure, borrowings, and the rest of it. And it caters for states and local government. It even caters for the government-owned enterprises. How do we relate with them? Because the budget of the government-owned enterprises is not going to be part of the budget presented by the president. So those parameters are first of all settled, and the parameters are very simple. What is going to be the interest rates? It's with a view to ensuring there is macroeconomic stability. What is the interest rate? What is the foreign exchange rate? How many barrels per day of oil are we likely to unearth? Then at what...
The president projected 1.78 million. The president projected 1.78.
Then at what... Now, we've fallen short for some time of meeting our targets because of too many things, too many issues. Pilfering of the oil, yes. You have illegal illegal refineries all over the place. But all things being equal, these are parameters that must be defined. That is what determines whether the budget will be 27 trillion or will be 30 trillion or will be 20 trillion. You look at X is the number of fuel that we will get. We will sell it at Y price, and the exchange rate will be maybe Z, and so on and so forth. So those parameters must be settled, which was why the president sent to the National Assembly for approval the MTEF, Medium-Term Expenditure Framework, which has been approved. It is, like I said, the foundation upon which the budget is built. If anything changes, the president may send another letter to say, look, things have changed in diaspora and there is need to change this. And just like the president can do supplementation of the budget. So I think the president has started well by projecting those figures. The budget itself is 27 billion plus, and it has recurrent of 9 billion, which is still high, then 8.7 billion, I think, which is the capital, and I think 8.1, which is the debt repayment. Debt repayment used to be higher, but don't forget again that we've removed subsidy, so some more money are coming in, and with that, we should be able. I don't have any problem with, as long as the budget of course came with deficit of maybe about 9 trillion too, about 9 trillion deficit, but I don't have any problem with having deficit budget as long as we can fund it, as long as the funding, going back to the Fiscal Responsibility Act, has been approved by the National Assembly based on cost-benefit analysis. And if I can recollect vividly, I think it's Section 44 of that act that says so. You don't even borrow for recurrent, you borrow for capital. And you don't even borrow for capital at all. You borrow for long-term capital, long-term infrastructure development, things that you cannot do and achieve in a year, 2, 3 years. That's what you borrow for. And that's what I think, and I hope this government of President Bola Tinubu will borrowing to fund the deficit will do.
Indeed. Well, it was serious business that the president had to do there yesterday, but he was speaking about how he was feeling entirely at home in the place yesterday, and the Senate president was, and the House was, the combined House was quite welcoming. The other thing is that the Senate president actually had, undertaken that, look, we're going to be hitting the road, hitting the ground running. We will do the needful as soon as possible in a timely manner. He actually slipped in there for the president to consider barring anybody from traveling anywhere in the immediate term, so that when they invite people to come explain things, they would be available. So all of that seems to indicate that the National Assembly, at least going by its leadership, has said that they will be giving it all that it has. He did point out that without compromising the principle of separation of powers.
Two things that will happen subsequently, two things that will happen going forward, two things that are likely to happen. Number one is the fact that, I'm saying it for the third time, I think, that the president thanked the National Assembly for its cooperation. The cooperation, the collaboration, and the coordination of the parliament is very germane to running good government. And we must always separate it from separation of power. Yes, powers are separated. Yes, I won't expect the president to do things that will touch on the independence of the legislature. Just like I won't expect the legislature to do things that will touch on the independence of the executive or the judicature. But first and foremost, there must be cooperation. We can't move forward. I was in the parliament when we had tranquil session, and I know what we achieved. I was also the SSA to the president when we also had tranquil session. And I was also in the parliament when we did not have it and we could not do anything. We are not moving forward. Governance is not about competition. The president is not competing with National Assembly. National Assembly is not competing with the president. We voted for the president and we voted for the National Assembly members to deliver the good, to do the needful, to do good governance for us. So I think that is very important. And I think the Senate president was on point. And the president felt at home because, he was also a former senator. He knows how the system works. The National Assembly members must cooperate with the president and the executive arm must collaborate with them. That does not mean if the executive is going overboard, they must agree. They mustn't agree. They must not agree. There must be separation, very clear separation of powers. But with a view to serving Nigerians, they must ensure that they cooperate. That is one. Then secondly, what happened yesterday, if it were an ordinary or a general bill, you still need to do first reading. And when you do first reading for just any bill, creation of establishing any parastatal and so on and so forth, you will need 3 readings. Fine. But the first reading has been done for appropriation bill by the president yesterday by laying the bill. That is the provision of the rules. So what the National Assembly will do going forward, most likely today or latest by Tuesday, is to do the second reading, which will entail looking at the financial situation in Nigeria, the economic reality, and what is going on with respect to revenue and expenditure and so on and so forth. We are not going there. That's the difference between an ordinary bill and an appropriation bill is that at the stage of second reading, you can kill any bill. If you don't have enough people supporting you, if you have not galvanized enough support by lobbying your colleagues, your bill can be killed. An appropriation bill can never be killed. The appropriation bill must go on. And you are not just talking about the pros and cons of the bill, the advantages, disadvantages of the bill, the merits and demerits of the bill, talking about the general principles of the bill. No. Now you are talking about what is the economic reality with a view to assisting the appropriation committee that the budget will be sent to. You have to assist them.
Let me bring in our first caller. Sorry, Senator. I beg your pardon. Let me bring in our first caller. Wale has called in from Houston, Texas. Good morning, Wale, in the U.S.
Good morning, sir. Uncle Yori.
Good morning, sir. Thank you for calling in.
Yes, sir. Good morning, Senator. Uncle Yori, I just
Good
have
morning.
a question for the Senator this morning.
Okay.
Is that because when the president walking in to the section and they were singing, on your mandate we shall stand, is there any big deal or anything wrong the president or the House has done for them singing, on your mandate we shall stand? Well, the reason why I'm asking this question, I watched a program this morning, and they have already been making it a big deal.
Okay.
That's why I'm asking Senator this question. As something that is not supposed to be a big deal in Nigeria, they always try to make it a big deal because they're trying to say the president is turning the both House and the Senate to turning it to something else. That's why my question goes to the senators this morning.
All right, then.
If there's a song for them singing that song.
Oh, all right. Thank you very much, Wale, for calling in with that question. Senator, I believe you know what he's talking about. It was when the president was introduced,
yes, I do.
And it was the sort of, what is it called? Was that a sort of a serenade? I think he's asking, was it appropriate or not? Because people have been talking about it.
My response is that it's no big deal. Ordinarily, in a proceeding, the proceeding is meant to be a very sober proceedings, very somber proceedings. You don't clap in the Senate, for instance, even at the committee level. You don't clap for people. It's supposed to be well-guided proceedings. But whenever the president comes to deliver the budget, it's always a different matter entirely. It's a joint sitting first and foremost. Don't forget that even in the rules, what the Constitution even says under Section 80 or 81 is that the president will come and lay the budget before the respective houses. But out of convention, we do it jointly. So you have a joint session.
Senator, I think
it's like the state of the nation address.
I beg your pardon. The song that Wale, sang there, and that it was in nature of a fanfare that followed the presentation of the president to the House. So that fanfare.
I just said so that.
Okay.
I just said so that when it comes to presentation of the budget and the president is there, don't forget that when President Buhari was there, must have been 4 or 5 years ago. 4 or 5 years ago, yes, that must have been the eighth Senate.
Okay.
And that was just before his re-election.
All right.
The chamber was tumultuous, was almost riotous, was extremely tumultuous, and people were shouting him down from the opposition, and those of us that were in the majority party were encouraging him. When it comes to the proceedings are always very liberal when the president comes. I was there when Zuma, the former president of South Africa, came with the president to deliver a special address to the joint session of the National Assembly. Proceedings are not always as regulated as when so people sing. I can throw support for you. State of the Nation address, when the President of America goes to the Congress to do State of the Nation address, people
you don't
clap.
see much wrong with it.
People stand up.
You don't see much wrong with it, Senator.
Nothing was wrong with it. Nothing
Ada
was wrong with it.
has also called in. Thank you for holding on, Ada. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Yuri, and good morning to your guest, the Senator. Well,
good morning.
That's my opinion this morning. Nobody should crucify me. Looking at the budget holistically, there's nothing new about it. It's more like a hallucinatory budget because we don't have much control over our oil production, due to our inability to check the growing level of oil sales. We can't control the price of food at the international market, and by implication, the exchange rate. Servicing the huge debt is another issue. Some aspect of the budget that really got me, gave me good feeling for was the education, which is my area. Education is still hovering around 7%, instead of UNESCO's recommendation of 26% or at least 20%. I thought Mr. President would have done something differently. Health also suffered the same problem, So that is it. So then the military, that's the military. Yes, they had a high
the highest.
They have a high percentage. But then the problem is that no matter how much you will vote for the military, until they re-strategize and carry out a coordinated operation for a week, and it should be done simultaneously. Once it is done, you will see for 1 week we're going to get improve. It will improve than what we have now. They will operate in Kaduna. Some of the bandits will escape to Zamfara, and so on. So that's an issue. So let them revisit it. Then again, another thing is that no matter the GDP or the double digit or whatever economic terms, it's not what is our problem. Our problem is go to the market and be able to buy food. Food insecurity is a big issue now. So they should do all they can to make sure they address such issues. As for the National Assembly, I'm not excited. People cannot even hold on that yourself and face the issue of scrutinizing this budget thoroughly, because there's no separation of power. People can even decide to just pass it tomorrow morning. Or it's a lesson for Nigeria.
Thank you very much for calling in, Ada. Okay, okay, Senator, please go ahead. How would you react? She wasn't happy that
she said for
education and health, for example, are way below other parameters, security and the military, for instance.
Yes, what she said is true, but the budget has nothing to do with administration of the government. It is the budget implementation after the budget has been passed, budget performance. You do what is called policy incubation, performance, monitoring and evaluation, and compliance. That is administration. So it is left to the president, and I know he has the capacity, he has the experience to so do, to ensure that everything that has been written in the budget is implemented. Otherwise, it will just be in the budget. And next year, it will also come to reach the budget will be passed and nothing will happen. So that is implementation. So oil theft, exchange rates, all those things must be addressed. They must be addressed by way of administering, governing, and ensuring that the needful is done. She mentioned education should be still 7%, should be 26%, this and that, and so on and so forth, health. We've entered into so many agreements, so many treaties in Nigeria. And Treaty A, we say that you do education 20%, you do health 20%, you do this 20%. The budget is finished. That's the truth of the matter.
State Senator Omoworare joining us remotely from Abuja. And we're looking at the budget at Mr. President, a preliminary look at the budget that Mr. President laid before the National Assembly yesterday. Already we've got calls, speaking about the percentages. Defense and security, as you know, is right up there, 12% of the budget at 3.25 trillion naira. And a caller, Ada, has already complained that education is just 1.33 trillion, accounting for about 5% of the budget. But we do have another guest who is on the line in Abuja. Good morning to you, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Abubakar, good morning to you, sir.
Good morning. I can hear you clearly.
Okay, please go ahead now.
Yeah, I remember Mustafa Wakara Tinubu speaking from PWC here in Abuja. On query, I'm very, very happy for this budget of renewed hope. The reason is that from the day this budget is signed into law, that is when we begin to assess the presidency of Asiwaju Bola Tinubu. The budget Asiwaju is using at the moment is not this budget. These are not its input. What I want a lot of Nigerians to understand is this. You say UNESCO budget for education is 24.5%. Okay, what if the government decides to put 25% and decide the budget performance now end at 2%? You understand? It's not about what percentage is put, but what is the implementation? What is the performance? That is what we should all be yearning for. So let's see how this budget performs. Let's put pressure on the government. You on the media, we on the social media, the senators, the House of Reps doing their own oversight. That is what is needed. Is the budget performance, the budget implementation. That is what we should be worried about, not percentage that is put there. I can put 50% and release 2%. I will have 2% performance. What have I achieved? But if I put, let's say, that 7% for education and I achieve 7%, that is unprecedented in the history of budget in this country. And that is what we are looking at. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Succeed.
Thank you very much, Mr. Abubakar, for calling in. Along similar lines, Senator, because all these recommendations, United Nations recommendations, the guidelines, they're recommendations, they are guidelines. But as that gentleman was pointing out, the actual performance of the budget is key. And I think you were also indicating that earlier.
That matters. If the budget performance is way below average, then even if you have 20% in the budget, then at the end of the day, maybe the implementation may be 9%. So it's the implementation that matters, and you and I must ensure that the budget is implemented. Then she mentioned, I'm still referring, and I agree with what Abubakar said, but
okay.
Others said separation of powers, that this thing will be passed and nothing will happen at the end of the day. I don't think so. The president, if you read the speech very well, and I think it's paragraph 38 of the speech, he alluded in a very subtle manner, recognizing the fact that whilst he is initiating the budget under Section 81 of the Constitution, the power to pass the budget lies in the National Assembly. And in a subtle manner, he said, yes, you can do it, but let it be in tandem with the program, the project, what the executive is doing, and don't put things that will not be equitable to Nigerians, to the citizenry. And he also said, look, in doing it, ensure that it is done in a manner that the MDA responsible for the program, for that particular project, is the NDA under which you have put the project. So the National Assembly can still change things. The National Assembly can still increase education or health, if that is what is priority of Nigerians. Yes, and it is good priority. But at the end of the day, we have challenges. We have food security challenges in Nigeria. The NSB has said that, look, which is the Bureau of National Statistics Bureau, We spend so much money on food in Nigeria at the moment. We must bring food security down, and there is a correlation also with security. You can't go to the farm if there is no security there.
Sure, exactly. Good morning, Mr. Yakub from Dokbemo. Thank you for holding on. You can go right ahead now.
Yeah, thank you, Chief Yori, and then good morning to your guest, Mr. Omoworare.
Senator Omoworare.
Senator
Good morning.
Omoworare, yes. Chief Yori, once again, I'm happy that I give my vote to President Bola Tinubu. Listening to him yesterday, in fact, I was like, wow, this is old man that they were taught that cannot deliver, and then the journey has started begin. But I think I have to say this. One of President Bola Tinubu campaign then was like he's going to give in student loan. And then I could remember as at that time, the NAS, the student union come to Aso Rock then, and then make sure that they let President Bola Tinubu, the president now, that if you are giving this student loan, make sure that the institution, we are not increase the tuitions. Please, because if you give the student loan, they had it in mind that all the institutions, they may likely increase their tuitions. And then he give them his word then that it will never happen. So what are we saying today? And then the student loan, the K-leg that is there, this student is going to access to this loan. There were parameters that even though you want to access to that loan, there are some certain kind of people that needed to sign the paper before you can even access it. That's number one. And then why? From the information some of us had in our hand, in fact, some of our children are prepared to enter institutions now. Some of the institutions in this country, federal institutions, some of them from 70,000 to 170,000 naira. It is too much. Now the subsidy has been removed, and then we had it in mind that the Nigerian government had a lot of money now. Instead of them to compensate us through the education and some other, especially education, and now almost all the universities in this country have already increased their tuition. Now my question goes to Senator Omoworare. What do you think the Nigerian government can do to bring down this price? Because it is very, very difficult for ordinary citizens in this country to send their children to higher institution now, because the price was so much, from 100,000 to 200,000. So it is.
Let's give the senator a chance to weigh in. He did say yesterday that the students' loan will be commencing from January 2024. But you also brought up some other matters, Senator.
I think you've answered him in parts. The president said it will start. First of all, let's give the president kudos for making a promise during the campaign, and when he became the president, he started implementing it. The bill was processed and the bill was passed, and he assented to the bill, and it has now been budgeted for. And the president said yesterday that by January 2024, the implementation will start. That is one. Secondly, and I'm sure the education minister is listening to us, he was a VC of a university before. He was DG Law School. He's been everywhere. And I think I agree, he should do something about the increment in fees. It's of no use when you have universities that generate revenue internally and the federal government still assist them. They must sit down with federal government before they increase any fee. They must agree that we are increasing fees maybe by 1%, by 5% across board and so on and so forth. But it must not be irrational. It must not be excessive. It must be affordable, because it will make nonsense of the whole idea of federal government assisting indigent students to pay school fees. That is my view.
Yes. And it links up with everything.
Do the needful.
And it links up with everything. I think it was Ada who was speaking about food, the near impossibility with food prices. And you had spoken earlier about the strategic role of security if people are going to have to be able to go to the farm. So
and even food security.
And even food
education
security.
is important. I agree.
There's food inflation. Oh.
I agree that education is important. Yeah, I agree. But, these are parameters that had been looked into and that they will look into. My own takeaway yesterday from the speech of Mr. President is that he wants macroeconomic stability. Interest rate, inflation rate, bring down unemployment, food security, and all these issues that will, at the end of the day, make the macroeconomy of Nigeria very stable. And I think it's achievable. It will not be done in 1 year. It is not possible. If anybody tells you it will be done in 1 year. But what matters most is implementation and performance of the budget, which must be monitored and evaluated. If it's not done, so if we are doing something that is not right, there's nothing wrong in saying, look, I'm sorry, I thought this will work. It's obviously not working, probably because of the human factor. Let's recalibrate. Let's have a second look at it. Let's move on and do something else if that is necessary.
Let me bring on Fidel. Fidel has called in from Omoworare. Good morning, Fidel.
Thank you very much. You see, I'm very happy with the budget that has been presented. What it requires now is for the National Assembly to show a high level of transparency and honesty in handling the issue of the budget. If there are areas that the Nigerian public feel should be given more attention, they should be at liberty to do that. But in doing this, they should avoid anything that will lead to the type of budget padding we witnessed some years ago. And let me say that more attention should be given to areas like agriculture. And anything that will be done to cushion the effect of removal of fuel subsidy should be done now. And that is why more attention should also be given to the oil sector. As we do this, I think Nigerians will be better for it. Thank you. I'm Fidel Onyeneke.
Thank you very much for calling in. Senator, you were talking about some aspects of due process. I think people are also going to be concerned with the fact that the president was talking about ensuring that the principles of accountability, are closely adhered to. You know how corruption is and how so much can slip in between cracks if allowance is made. But that the president said that before anybody began to think of those kind of lines, that they're going to be sure to make sure that everything is tight and as should be.
I agree with Mr. President, and I want to, with every sense of sincerity, the National Assembly has the wherewithal. The people in charge of the budget, both the elected representatives of the people and the bureaucracy, can deliver between now. Ordinarily, it's because it's a new government, and this is the first budget. That is why the president is delivering the budget towards the end of November. Ordinarily, this shall be done towards the end of October to give the National Assembly more time to work on the budget. The heads of MDAs, ministries, departments, and agencies will come and defend the budget. There's every likelihood that there will be public hearing. There are other materials that the National Assembly will consider in determining. I can assure you that there is separation of powers in the National Assembly in Nigeria. And they will definitely, like I said earlier on, the president even acknowledged the fact that the National Assembly can tinker with it. But he had, in a subtle manner, set the parameters within which they can touch the budget. It will not be anything substantial. But if they feel the executive has not done this properly, they can do it. They have the independence to do it. And I think they should. If they think that is the situation. Agri social investment mentioned by the last caller will be looked at. I can assure you that the president knows and the executive knows, National Assembly knows that food security matters in Nigeria. If you put food on anybody's table, you've done half of the job for the person.
Okay, let me bring in Mr. Joshua in Irewolede. Good morning, Mr. Joshua. Thank you for calling in.
Okay, good morning. Good morning to your guest, the Senator. Budget, of course, is ceremonial. Anybody knows that. The performance, as it were, is what will determine whether we'll move forward or not. I want to use this platform to reach out to your guest and to his colleagues. My point about the platform you have given to us to talk is to say some things back to people in government, because once they are there, sometimes they don't feel the pulse of the public again. So when we have this window, we can remind them some things. Please let the senator be aware, both him, who is serving now, and those of them who have been in government before.
Actually, he's not in this Senate. He's not in this Senate. But, you know, once the senator
I'm not in the Senate. I was in the 7th and 8th Senate.
Saying that those who are there now.
He was in the 7th and 8th Senate.
Yes.
Okay.
Now, they should know that Nigeria has no business being a failure, being poor. Nigeria has no business being categorized as the poorest nation in the world. Everybody should understand it. That's why sometimes it pains me when people who have been in government before, who also have done something, they come back to the public, whether to criticize or to start offering advice. You can't offer us advice if you have been in government before. Like a former president coming to criticize an existing government. No way. It's a no-no, right? Because he has been in government before. If he has done well, he will be in opposition, whether in a party that is in opposition, and will be able to point out through his political party what the present government is doing wrong.
But as you know, Mr. Joshua, it's very, very unusual for a former president to be criticizing, you know, a sitting administration. Very, very unusual. You don't often hear of it.
Yeah, I mean, of course it happens. Sometimes it happens. Some of them are matured enough to keep silent about it, but some do it. But the point is, please, everybody in government in Nigeria should know that Nigeria has no business being a failure. That's just my message to them this morning.
Indeed.
We have no business being a failure.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Joshua, for calling in from Irewolide. Senator?
My response to Mr. Joshua, I think he raised two issues. The first one is we have no business being poor, and that budget is ceremonial. It is the performance that matters. That's what we've been saying. I agree with him. And he said this is an opportunity to feel the pulse of the people. And I also agree with him, and I think he's noted. And I know that those who are sitting at the moment in the National Assembly, they're also noting this. Secondly, he said a former president cannot criticize that. Former president has no business criticizing a former president if he has been there before.
A successful administration.
In fact, the convention is that you don't do it. Some few people do it. Even
but President Obasanjo does it, unfortunately.
I agree with you. That was why I said that some people do it.
President Obasanjo is not shy to
do so. You've hit the nail on the head. It's seldomly done. It's not usually done. I served as an opposition senator, and I know that, for instance, I cannot recollect anybody that called for division before I did. Probably one person did. Probably. We did opposition, and we did opposition well. I was even looking at my brief a few days ago, and I saw that I opposed the citing, the inclusion of African First Ladies Center or something at a sitting. I opposed it vehemently. So probably Mr. Joshua does not know who I am. I think I tried my best when I was there. But usually I cannot criticize the senators and the House of Rep members that are there at the moment. I will advise them. And I think I do that. I've had opportunity in the past few months to attend some programs, and I know what my contributions are. You will not hear Senator David Mark or Senator Pius Anyim or Senator Namani just criticize where he has served before. Then. But I can assure you that they are not keeping quiet wherever they are. They are advising the system. If they don't like something going on, they make their opinion known. But they will not do it by making it public. Just like presidents should not do it.
They don't.
President Obama usually does, but I think it's wrong.
Exactly.
That's my
President
perspective. I think it's wrong.
Obasanjo.
That's like that everywhere in the world. That's like that in the US. You don't criticize. Which is the
You won't hear
challenge
it.
you have even in US.
Let me quickly
You
bring
don't
on
do
Chidi.
it. You do it privately.
Chidi is calling in sorry, sir. Chidi is calling in from Kafanchan. Good morning in Kafanchan.
Good morning, Uncle Yori.
Good morning, sir. Thank you for calling in.
Honorable Senator there. Yes.
Good morning.
Judging from the background of President Tinubu, I simply want to believe that the budget presentation that he has done yesterday will soon be cleared by the National Assembly. But that is normally ceremonial, as Joshua has rightly said. The most important area Nigerians should look into, and other stakeholders must work assiduously to ensure, is the budget implementation, one, and the policy implementation, two. Let there be adequate templates for businesses to grow in Nigeria. Let there be the adequate template for security to thrive, both on the side of food security and every other aspect of security. I want to strongly believe that they are all embodied in this budget, which is being expected to be signed into law any moment from January, God's willing.
Indeed.
Thank you very much, and God bless Nigeria.
Thank you very much for calling in, Mr. Chidi from Kafancha. And indeed, the Appropriation Act, is going to take effect from the 1st of January, is it? Yeah, 1st of January.
We definitely sign it. It will definitely assent to the bill before 1st of January under Section 318 of the Constitution and Section 1 of Financial Year Act, Act number 2 of 1980. The financial year is 1st of January to 31st of December. Unfortunately, a few years ago, budgets could take 3, 4, 5 months. So we had implementation challenges. But now, if the National Assembly passes the budget on time, I don't think executive will have any excuse for not implementing it well. The president, let me just say two things. Number one, the president has put in place a policy tracking office. And I think is Adiza that is chairing that, the special advisor on policy tracking. My expectation is that from 1st of January, everything that has been budgeted for, and I'm choosing my words most advisedly, my expectation, but I know the president has the capacity and people around him to say to implementation, efficacious implementation of this. We must track the budget, and the president has an office to track the budget, to look at the key
we just have a couple more minutes
of every ministry.
We just have sorry, Senator, we just have a couple more minutes. That's why I want to bring on.
Let me just say the second. Okay.
Okay, sorry. Mazi Okorafor has called in from Arochukwu. Mazi, we don't have more than a couple of minutes, and the senator still has one other point to make. Please go ahead, sir.
Okay, Mazi Okorafor. Yes, I'm just calling on the senator that let the bill be passed as quick. And what we have to know is that today, our problem, the budget is well arranged, well educated. But the question I want the senator to look into that. The implementation have to be very, very careful. That implementation have to cover what the president had in mind.
Okay.
The ministries, the NGAs, they have to work in that. They have a committee that will monitor all these ministries we have in Nigeria. That will make the budget have a human face, because a budget that doesn't have a human face is a budget that didn't get to the downtrodden.
Okay, we're going to have to leave you there, Mazi. I really beg your pardon. You know it's not like this always. Senator, as I said, we're down to the wire, but you still had one other point to make. Would you like to quickly make it?
Well, the point I want to make is that the ball, after passing the bill and after the president's assent, and when implementation starts, and when the policy office of the president now has the opportunity of having a global look at the budget and ensuring implementation, the key performance indices, the KPIs of each ministry, the ball will now go back to the court of the National Assembly to oversight.
Okay.
Oversight is a weapon under Section 88 and 89 that must be carefully used. And if carefully used, they can ensure that there is implementation.
All right, then. We're going to have to leave. That's a fine place to leave it, Senator. I'm so sorry. Today, it seems there's so much to say, and we thank you for being available for us. But we've just about run out of time. So I'd like to thank you once more, Senator Babajide Omoworare, former SSA to the President, to President Buhari, on National Assembly matters, and our guests helping us to look at the presentation of the budget by President Tinubu yesterday. Thank you very much, sir. We hope we'll link up with you again shortly.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right, then. So that's our program today. Please join us tomorrow for a fresh edition. I am Yori Folani. Bye-bye for now.